Now, the most notable episode in David Cameron's post-Downing Street career until now has been his work as an advisor to Greensill Capital. After its failure in March 2021, it emerged that Mr Cameron, who was reportedly paid £720,000 a year by Greensill, had lobbied Rishi Sunak, then the Chancellor, after texting him to ask for financial help for the firm. Well, joining me now is the Washington Post journalist Duncan Mavin, who wrote a book, Pyramid of Lies, on the rise and fall of Greensill Capital. Duncan, great to see you this afternoon. For people who can't really remember the details, what was Greensill Capital and what did David Cameron do for them?
Yeah, so Greensill Capital was a new fund that was been running for a few years, and a few of us knew there was something wrong with it, but it got to be a pretty big size. It generated billions of dollars, and eventually it collapsed under the weight of a lot of speculation about whether it was a real business or not. David Cameron had worked for them for several years. He was essentially a sort of a door opener. He introduced Lex Greensill, who was the founder of Greensill Capital, to politicians and business people and really helped them grow the business.
Now, was he a particularly effective lobbyist and door opener?
Well, that's really questionable, I guess. I think in some places he was, right? So they made some inroads in places like Saudi Arabia. Cameron accompanied Lex Greensill on trips to Japan, where he got a massive investment from a big fund there. In other times, he was a less effective lobbyist, I guess. He worked a lot for Lex Greensill during COVID, trying to get access to various amounts of COVID bailout money. And he was rebuffed in some places. In other places, he got some access. And in fact, they got several £100 million worth of COVID bailout money.
Now, there are obviously a lot of investigations, for example, by the Serious Fraud Office into the failure of Greensill, lots of lawsuits as well. Does any of this have the potential to cause trouble for David Cameron?
Well, I think it does. I think it's a real worry for Cameron and for his new boss, Rishi Sunak, right? There are currently criminal investigations into Greensill Capital in Switzerland and in Germany. There is an ongoing SFO investigation into aspects of the Greensill business here in the UK. And there are multi-billion-dollar lawsuits all over the world related to Greensill. And each one of these is going to involve lots of sort of additional information that's going to come out about Cameron's role or what happened with the company. And each one is a potential kind of embarrassing moment for everybody involved in it, which obviously includes Cameron.
There isn't actually much suggestion, though, Duncan, correct me if I'm wrong, that David Cameron actually knew what was going on beneath the bonnet at Greensill. He didn't necessarily know the problems that were being stored up.
Yeah, I think that's a fair comment. The question, I suppose, is whether he should have known that. He was getting paid a lot of money. You mentioned his salary. He also got paid a lot of money in other ways through share options. And so, was it his responsibility to know what was going on? I think there were plenty of warning signs that there were problems with Greensill. My sources tell me that David Cameron was warned before he took a job with the company that this was a company that had some problems. And certainly, myself and others had written stories that outlined many of the problems that emerged later. So, yeah, I think you're right. His role was not in the parts of the business that were necessarily what people have alleged to have been fraudulent. But nevertheless, he was a senior figure in this company. And maybe, as a former prime minister, should have done a better job of finding out what was going on.
And worth pointing out, of course, in a parallel universe, Greensill Capital's floated on the stock market and David Cameron's made tens of millions of pounds from the IPO.
That's correct. I think none of us actually really know how much money David Cameron made from Greensill. Certainly, estimates have been sort of several million pounds. I think had Greensill got to IPO status, he stood to make a lot more than that, tens of millions, as you say, which is really an incredible amount of money, right? And, for the sort of work he was doing, I guess that was the value that Lex Greensill saw in having a former prime minister on staff.
Do you know whether he's read your book, Duncan?
I don't know. I'm sure he's seen it, though. He's on the cover.
All right, got to leave it there. Duncan, good to catch up with you again. Thank you.